welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. I'm Christine. This week I am interviewing Priscilla, an adult homeschooler raised in a big family where she was homeschooled from her childhood right through to when she finished as a teen. I always think that if you come across an adult homeschooler, they are a potential mine of gems and other good things of value. Amongst the things we talk about today are what it is like to be living as a homeschooler in a big family, and what is the organisation that especially the mum had to implement in order to keep order in their home. We also discuss the importance of rest and who is influencing your children. One of the benefits of being at home, as I have mentioned before, are the close sibling relationships that your children will inevitably have. Hello, Priscilla. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and be interviewed about your experiences as a homeschool child and teen. I'm so looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. I suppose we should just start off by telling people how we met. I'm in New Zealand, you're in the US. What state are you in?
I'm in Alabama.
Alabama, rightio. Okay, so I know that's down south, and we met on a knitting chat group.
Yes.
So we both have our knitting.
Yep. Mine's all tangled. Here's mine too.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let's get started talking about the homeschooling that we're talking about today. How long were you homeschooled for, Priscilla?
I was homeschooled. So I went to kindergarten, public school. And then both my parents are educators. And so my mom was teaching full time at that point, elementary school. And so my older sister and I were public schooled as well in our local county school. And then after that, I was pretty young. So timeline is mom and I disagree on when it happened. She says I went to first grade. I say I did not. I only went to kindergarten. But after that, around that time, from then on, I was homeschooled.
So is that about age 6?
I was 6 or 7 when I was in kindergarten. So 7 or 8 onward.
Oh. Okay. All right then. And did you homeschool for the rest of your schooling life?
Yes.
So right through to what age would that be for you?
For me, it was 17.
Okay.
Because my birthday's in June. So I graduated before I turned 18.
Okay, right. So you've had your entire childhood really from young right through to teens was a homeschooling experience. Okay, all right then. How many children were in your family? I think I've heard it's a reasonable size.
There are 9 of us, and I'm the second oldest.
The second oldest. Wow. Yeah. That's fantastic. That must have been a big, busy, and often noisy home.
It was. It was. My husband complains about how loud we all are when we all get together because we're still very loud people.
Oh, 9 children. So was mum homeschooling all 9 of you at the same time, or was there a bit of a in and out?
There's 7 years between my older sister and I. And so my older sister kind of was in and out of homeschooling and public school. And then for high school, she went back into public school so she could get Spanish credits and driver's ed. But then all the rest of us have been homeschooled, like just consistently straight through.
Right. I think that's going to get some interest automatically from parents listening to this.
Oh, yeah.
So what can you tell us then about how your mother arranged the day, like getting housework done and chores and just the basics of bookwork, etc.? How did that look like?
It depends on how old we all were. When I was little, I don't really remember. All I really remember is when I was little is in the evenings before bed, after supper, and we would have our we called it starting line. before breakfast and after bed. And there was a line in between our, like on the floor, in between our dining room and our kitchen where the flooring changed, like one of those brass divide, like connectors, you know? And that was the starting line. And mom would have us go ready, set, go. And we'd have to run off and start cleaning. We'd clean the living room and then move our way back to the bedrooms. And if we did it in 30 minutes, we got 3 pieces of candy. But for every 10 minutes that we went over, my mom would take away a piece. And so that's how she did it when we were little, like just general housekeeping, like picking up all the toys and everything. But then as we got older and like my parents kept having kids, we had our buddy system, which is where the big kid had a little buddy and the big kid would help the buddy do the chores. And so my mom we would cycle out. There was kitchen and then bedrooms and living room. And the big for like kitchen, it was like dishes and stuff. Bedrooms and living room were one. It was kitchen, laundry, and bedrooms and living room. Laundry, you do laundry because we had to do lots of laundry. And then living room would like make the beds, vacuum the living room, like so. And then we would cycle out every day. And each buddy pair system would do the chores before and after meals and then before bed. So that was our chores system. And for schooling, my mom would do the little kids in the morning whenever us older kids, like that would give us time to do our homework and everything and get ready for our classes, like with mom in the afternoons. She would do little kids, get all like their phonics and their math and language and everything done in the morning. And then after lunch, she would do our school with us. And because I was the oldest, there were many midnight math at McDonald's where mom and I would go like after supper late in the afternoon when I was in high school. We'd go to McDonald's and do math.
You mean actually you went to McDonald's and did your math?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Because so it's open. At the time, it was open all night, you know? So we would go and we called it midnight math at McDonald's. But then what else? Let's see. So she would do the kids' school. Oh, and she would also break it up where on Mondays and Wednesdays we would do math and language, and on Thursdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays we did history and science. And so that gave us a full day in between each subject to get our homework done. And then on Fridays we had band. So we didn't really do school on Fridays.
Sorry, what did you say you did on Friday?
Band.
Band.
All of us play. Yes. Some friends of ours, their mom went to college for music. She is a music director. And so she started up a homeschool band. Yeah. And so myself, like I know how to read music. I played clarinet and bass clarinet. All of my siblings play an instrument. So
that could be really good fun when the family gets together. I could just
just
imagine you all getting your instruments out and having a good play along. That's fantastic.
I wish I owned mine. My bass clarinet belongs to the band, and so now my brother's playing it.
What did your mother use for a curriculum, Priscilla?
She used well, it depended on the ages. We mostly used, like when I was little, we would use a Becca, which is a Christian, I think it's from Pensacola, Florida. I can't remember where. But we used the Becca math and phonics language for young kids. And then when I went into high school, I really didn't, I think I still used the Becca language, but I was really good at language. And so my mom was like, you're fine. Like, you don't have to worry too much about it. But for math, we switched over to Saxon math because my mom liked how it would lay out the like every book every year would do like the first 30 lessons were review of the last book, like the necessities and the building blocks for what you were going to learn in this new book. And it would break it down really well. And so like when I start homeschooling my daughter, like especially when she gets in high school, I will be also using Saxon because my mom is saving all the books for me.
Cool. Do you remember, or had you already moved on from family life by then? By the time mum gets down...
hold on, you're cutting out a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, I think you're good now.
Good. Okay. Can you recall for the younger members of your family, did your mother make changes? Did like the younger children's education look a little different in approach from what you older ones had as time goes on?
Um, I don't really think so. Like maybe a little bit just to accommodate for each child's learning style. Because like for myself, language arts came to me like that. Like I was reading. I don't even remember learning how to read. I just remember knowing how to read. Like, and it was always really easy for me. So my mom was basically like, all right, here's a book. Bring me back your homework. Like I didn't really need much help once I got to a certain point. But then I know some of my sisters, like one of my sisters, really for a long time really struggled with like reading comprehension and phonics and language. And so like just the basic like learning or teaching style changed a little bit, just depending on what each kid needed to focus on more, you know? Um, but overall, my mom had been teaching elementary school, all different grades for a lot, like years at that point. Like she has her degree in teaching and everything. So I think she already kind of had her groove by the time they decided to teach us. So it really didn't change too much, I don't think.
Did your father have an active role in teaching you too?
Sometimes my dad is actually well, when I was growing up, he was just a college teacher. Now he's also pastoring a church. But because he was teaching at multiple different colleges and everything, and he teaches history and humanities, and he's just very, very history minded, I guess. And so sometimes he would come in and like teach us like history classes and explain stuff to us. And especially as I got older, I was able to start taking his classes. Because my brother and my dad started teaching at a co-op, and because he was teaching, we got to go. And we got to go and like take our language classes for our high school credits and everything. And we also took one of his history classes while we were there. So he did a little bit, but it was mostly my mom that taught us.
Yes, yes. So I find it interesting that your parents were teachers.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Ah.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that your parents were
Yes,
teachers.
you're good. Sorry.
And yet they seem to have strategically chosen to homeschool you all. And for 9 children, that's a lot of years. So it was a deliberate, well thought out strategic plan. Do you happen to know, I assume you've talked about it together, what was their why?
Well, I'm not sure because I was pretty young at the time. But from what I remember, my brother was 4 at the time, and he had gone with my mom to the sign up for school. And I think he was like, yeah, he must have been 4. Um, he had gone with my mom and he got sick, threw up everywhere. And so she had to bring him home before she could sign up. And at that point, like I grew up like both my parents are Christian, very Christian, godly household. And so at that point, from what I understand, having talked a little bit about it to mom afterwards, um, that was like finally was like, okay, no, we know that God wants us to homeschool. Like this is why we're doing this because we don't feel like sending kids to school is right, especially when my mom could teach us. Like so, but my mom will probably be like, that's not how the story goes, and that's just what I remember.
That's all right. Maybe I could find out that another day. I always find it fascinating.
Oh yeah.
Because to devote a huge chunk of your life, it's one thing to have children, isn't it? But it's quite another to embrace the entire homeschooling, because that's such a huge chunk of your life. It has to become your career. So there's got to be a really good reason as to why a parent would want to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I love hearing about from people too, what their why is.
Well, and to be fair, also, there were only like 5 of us at the time. So there were only 5 kids. The other kids came later.
I love that. Only 5. Do you realize how many people are going to be going, oh, only 5?
Well, and the youngest are twins. So,
okay. One of the other big advantages, though, that I can see, because it happened in our family, and we only had 5, but to most Kiwis, that's a really big family.
Yeah. That's big here too.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So some of the advantages, I'm guessing, with the old ones, you said you had a buddy system for doing chores, etc. Yes. You would have just simply learnt by having to do it how young children operate? How do we even look after them? What's appropriate for each age? Because something that I see regularly is because most families are like 1, 2 kids, by the time they've gotten around to having their own children, they don't know what it is to even have a baby or a young child around them, and they know virtually nothing.
Yes.
So I know you can't compare that because it's always been that way, but is that something you've observed too?
I like to tell people that because I am a first time mom. I only have one. We only have one so far. And I see other first time moms and they're all kind of helicopter parent. And meanwhile, I'm over here like, she's fine. Because by the time my youngest siblings were born, I was 12 years old. And my mom was older, like, and she had to have a C-section because they were twins and everything. And so she needed a lot of help. And so I helped her a lot. My brothers, they all helped as much as they could as well, because there's about 2 years between all of us, besides myself and my older sister. And so like now, like what you're saying, like with my brothers, when my daughter was born, they just were over the moon. Like they're all really good with kids. My younger sisters, even though the twins are a boy and a girl, even though they've never had baby siblings before, because all of us are so like, yes, babies are so important. We love kids, we love children. They spend a lot of time with friends of ours who do have babies. And so they're great with babies. Like, it's a mindset that all of us have. That's just, it's just normal. We know how to take care of babies. Like,
Priscilla, looking back as an adult now, going back into your childhood, what advantages can you identify for you that you were homeschooled? What were the advantages for you?
well, we had a lot more free time. and and that was again a big part of how my mom set up our school was like compared to my husband who went to public school, they had every subject every day and hours of homework for every subject. But like for us, we had two subjects every other day, like I said, math, language, and then history and science. And so we got to take the whole day to get ready for the next day. And when we were done, we pretty much, until I got older and I had to, again, the midnight math at McDonald's. Before that, though, we were able to pretty much be done by 4:30 every day, like done. So we could go do it. We could go play on the computers. We could go read books. We could go do whatever we wanted because we were finished for the day. And so that was a big advantage because it was just like we got that resting your brain, resting your body, refreshing, relaxing and unwinding time.
That's an interesting perspective that you've identified clearly, that one of the advantages was rest. I haven't heard anybody address that before. That's interesting because something that I see quite a lot of, and mostly public school children, is they're just so darned busy all the time, and rest.
Yeah. And the things we were busy with were things that we wanted to do, like band or youth group on Wednesdays and Sunday nights, like going and spending time with our friends on the weekends. Like we were busy because we wanted to be, not because we had to be.
Right. Yeah, good point. I love that point. Thank you. You also just mentioned books. I realized that over the years of homeschooling, a lot of perhaps what you would have read would have come from your parents. They want you to read this. Can you come up with maybe a list, if you like, or a list of some of the most important books that you think homeschooled students and parents need to include in their homeschooling now? Go.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was a big time reader as a kid. I would read anything I could get my hands on. And for better or for worse. And like school curriculum wise, I would highly recommend The Giver by Lois Lowry. That was one that I really liked, and it really teaches, like, it's good to, I don't really know how to explain it without giving away the ending. Like, but that one is a really good one. My mom had me read that one for school. The Little House on the Prairie books were good. Just and I know these are kind of younger books, but as an adult, I've been going back and rereading them. I'm like, yeah, this is really good. um,
What advice would you give to homeschooling parents now to do more of or perhaps less of?
I think advice for homeschooling parents is homeschooling is not public schooling. And if you try to make it like public schooling, everyone is going to just get burnt out and hate it and not want to have anything to do with school. Um, you need to find what works and what fits best for your family. Like I know for myself, like we did like okay being done at 4:30 and finishing and like having the alternating like very relaxed schooling style. But then I know my brother-in-law is very much like he needs structure. He needs rigid deadlines and like he needs those boxes to check. And so it really depends on what your family would do best in and how your family would thrive. And that might take a little bit of experimenting to figure that out, like where you guys flow the best. If you weren't already a teacher like my mom was, it'll take little bit of time, but you will get into a groove eventually. And it's okay if some things kind of slip through the cracks a little bit, especially as the school year comes to a close.
Did you ever wish you could go to school?
No, never. Um, I liked being home. I liked because most of my friends were homeschooled as well. And so we would especially once I went into high school, we started meeting and taking classes together. Some of our high school credits. Um, and then even when I was younger, my mom made it so much fun because we didn't do any school on Fridays. We would pretty much Fridays were like the beginning of our weekend before we started going to band and everything. We would do our spelling tests on Friday morning and any other simple tests we had. Like we would get done Friday morning. And then Friday afternoon, my mom would have like this, I can't remember if it was a bowl or a hat. I think it was a hat that had little pieces of paper in it, and each piece of paper had a different activity on it. So like go to the park or go to the library or like just a fun go-to activities. And so we would draw one of the activities and then we'd look at it and we would go somewhere and we would do what the activity was. And so that was our Friday. And we didn't have to do school. Like but but no, I never wanted to go to public school from what I remember. Like I was always very content with homeschooling.
Okay. As you grew up and into adulthood and thinking that you're coming out of a situation of homeschooling for your whole life, that's normal to you. You don't know anything else. And then you go out into the adult world and you're coming across more who weren't homeschooled. Can you think of differences that you started to see between yourself and your peers? Any comments there?
Well, like I said, my husband was not homeschooled. He was public schooled. And he and I have talked about it like a lot especially before we had kids, trying to decide, okay, well, I always wanted to homeschool. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool like my mom did. Um, and so we talked about it a lot and just with him and with some friends that I had, even in high school, but who were adults in college, um, I remember in high school, I was told that I was going to have such a culture shock when I graduated high school, when I entered the real world. And I just looked at him like, what is wrong with you? Like, why would you say that to someone in a way that's going to try to make him feel bad? Like, um, but it was just, well, from what my husband says, he hated school. He did not do well because it was a lot and he didn't like it at all. And he was just like, if I had the schooling that you had, he said to me, he was like, I would have done really well, but I didn't. So I didn't do well because I didn't want to. Um, and it's just, I feel like that's a common thread is that it's hard and it's not made for kids to learn conducively. Um, it's because it's so hard all the time, just so boom, 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 you'll do all this. And I, like, from the teacher's perspective, like, they're just like, I don't care if it gets done or not. Like, they don't care a lot of the time. And there are teachers who do care, but there are also a lot who don't. Um, and I don't know. It's just, I am definitely very thankful for the education that I got, because even though I didn't like it, like doing school, I didn't like math, but I was good at it. And I was very smart and I wanted to do well in school. Um, and you don't see that too often with public school. My sister went to our local public high school, and for when she was in high school, when she was, I think she was 16, 17. Um, and we met one of her teachers at Walmart one day, one of her favorite teachers. And she introduced me and I introduced myself, and we were just talking to him. And he was like, "You are homeschooled. You're homeschooled, aren't you?" And we were both just kind of like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I'm homeschooled." Like, how did you know that? He was like, "Because you can talk to adults. Because you, yeah, yeah."
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
said,
that's so true.
"Because
Yes.
you talk to adults comfortably, respectfully, like you're not afraid or shy or sulky or anything. Like you talk to an adult like a person." Um, and so, like, what you said about authority figures made me think about that, like that. And he said he only sees that in homeschooled kids. He doesn't see it in kids that go to public school. Um, and so I thought that was really interesting, and just, and also the whole critical thinking thing. That's, I don't know necessarily if homeschooling has to do with that or how your parents raise you. Because my parents are, especially my father, he is a very critical thinker. Like, growing up, we would read books together, we'd watch movies together, and we would rip them apart, like talking about it, talking about what we thought was going to happen next. Like, well, where's this movie going to go? Is it going to go this direction? Well, what about this book? What did you think about this? Like, and that is something both my sister and I learned from him. And people kind of find it annoying when we watch movies together. Because they're just like, "I just want to watch the movie." And we're like, "Oh, what did you hear what he said? What if he's gonna do this next?" Like,
Got it. Got it.
but that is definitely something that we got from our parents. So, and I think where you are homeschooled, you spend a lot of time with your parents. So if your parents think that way, you're probably going to think that way too.
That's a clear but indirect way of saying too that those whom you spend the most time around are those that are going to influence you the most. So what is it that you want your children to be, and what mentors do you want them to be with? Thinking then about how people approach, say, problem solving in life. Critical thinking that you mentioned, your dad especially was really helpful to you. Can you see any differences in your adult groups, and just integrating with people into the world, if you like? Not integrating, that's not the right word. Just being with other people out in the world. Can you see any differences between how, say, you and from your homeschooling background were taught to approach problems or questioning directives being given to you that you might not be very happy with? Have you got any comment to make there about differences that you might see that could be a result of the way you were schooled?
Well, I think with problem solving, we were definitely raised with the mindset of, if you don't know how to do something, ask. And also, a lot of it is just, a lot of stuff, simple stuff especially, is easy just to stop and, like, okay, work, like, think and work through. But I don't know. And then when it comes to, like, the responding to authority, we were also raised that as long as it is not anything that goes against your morals and values, you respect authority. Like, even if you don't necessarily agree, it depends on the situation, I think.
Yes.
Um, and I will say I have complained and, and bucked authority many a time, um, but I do think that like we were definitely raised to respect authority, um, even if we didn't necessarily agree or like it. Like I remember my sister will tell you, because she was telling me about it this morning. she uh she was telling me that my mom and I used to fight all the time. I was like, no, you were little. We didn't fight that much, but it just about math specifically because I did not like math every day. Math ended in tears. but um but it was very much that my mom would always tell me like you're gonna do it because I'm your mom and I'm more stubborn than you are. Like and so but then as I got older it was like okay yeah I respect her because she's my mom, she is my authority. um we still kind of got into little tiffs now and then, but it definitely like as I grew up it definitely got a lot better.
Okay.
But I do think that a lot of the things that we're seeing nowadays, especially here in the States, I don't know, I'm sure also New Zealand, is a lot of people don't, especially young people, like people my brother's age, so early 20s, um, don't respect authority whatsoever. Even people my age. Um, and it's just like it blows my mind because it's like, wow, wow.
Okay.
Like and again, like it goes back to who you're spending the most time with, how you were raised, because you also do see a lot of public school kids who are very respectful and like their parents raised them well. Um, so I don't know. I
Hmm.
think it's depends on the parents. A lot of it. It all comes back to the parents, I think, and the family home life.
Is there anything that you'd like to say, Priscilla, that we haven't brought up or something else that's on your mind?
Um, I don't think so. I had a couple of different thoughts, but now I don't remember, so they must not have been that important.
All right. Well, let's move to that reflective type question that we talked about
Mhm.
before. That if you could have an experience of sitting next to, say, an 8-year-old homeschooled girl, what
Mhm.
advice would you give her?
Um, for her, I think I would tell her that as she grows, she's gonna have a lot of people, or she might not until she's older, like I did, but she'll have a lot of people who kind of make fun of her. Because I know, especially when I was a kid, there was that stigma of, oh, you're homeschooled. Like, you must be socially awkward and not know how to do anything out and about in public and la da 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 da. Like, how do you when do you visit with people? Like, and so I think that was shocking the first time I heard it. And I think for her, like as a young girl, well, she really doesn't need to be worrying about anything other people say anyways, but don't let that and this is what I would say to both the young girl and the older girl. Don't take it to heart. And if someone does say something like that to you, well, stand your ground in a polite way, but just like if you're not socially awkward, you're not socially awkward. Like, and there were, let me tell you, I met a lot more public schooled kids that were incredibly socially awkward than any of my friend group. Um, but I remember being shocked when I had heard that for the first time. Somebody asked me, well, when do you do stuff? When do you go and spend time with other kids? When do you go spend time with your friends? Like, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like every day, like I'm with my friends every day. We take classes together, like we do band together. I always see them. Like,
Yeah.
um, but if I had to say, that would be what I would point out is that people will say that, people will think that, and don't take it to heart because they don't know
Mm.
and they're missing out, honestly.
Yes. Yes, there are myths out there, aren't there, that people just believe.
Hmm.
So specifically to a teenage young lady, 15 years old, what would you sit down with her and give her some mentoring advice?
I would say to her, she's almost made it. Good job. You made it this far. Um, and then like to really look into a safe area that can be a stepping stone between homeschooling and the real world. Like, because what I did was when I graduated high school, I went straight into a camp ministry internship. And so I grew up going to summer camp and everything. Um, and they have like their national internship, where the group that I grew up going to summer camp with has multiple different camps, and so they had their big national internship. Um, and so I went straight from high school to that, and then from that to adult life, and that was a good stepping stone so that I wasn't culture shocked, because I was on my own, but in a safe place. I got a stipend every month that was enough money that I could save a lot of it, have enough for food. Like it was it was like a controlled environment, but I was on my own. Um, and I would highly recommend like for both teenagers, teenage girls, teenagers in general, and for their parents, try to find something that will ease you into adulthood. That way you're not just jumping straight in the deep end, which works for some people, but it doesn't work for others, you know? Because it was really good. And then I moved back home after it was over and I was itching to get out of home.
Oh, that's lovely. Can you think of anything else we need to talk about, Priscilla? Would you like homeschooled mums, and especially the mums, but also the homeschooled, modern students? Is there anything you would like them to hear or think about?
um, no, nothing that comes to mind.
Oh,
Besides what I've already said. I loved homeschooling. I loved being homeschooled. I was able to help my younger siblings like with all of their schoolwork and everything. Um, like whenever my mom was working with some of the kids, I would work with the other kids. I could help them like with their letters and with their numbers and with like drawing and writing um and coming up with funny, silly ways to remember the alphabet. Like I remember my brother, he couldn't remember G was G, like G says G, and because it's G, so it must says J, like J, and he struggled and struggled, and I finally looked at him. I was like, "No, it's not G, it's G," and he went G, and I said, "Yeah, G," like G G G, and after that, it just took like, and he knew it, and it took him like maybe a couple more weeks. My mom's gonna laugh because I'm gonna send her this video, because she'll remember this. It took him a couple more weeks, but then after that, he never had a problem with it again.
okay.
Um, and so just if you have younger siblings, like for the kids who are homeschooling, it's a lot of fun and it's a really sweet time to bond with them, is helping them, coming up with fun, silly ways to be creative in helping them learn. And that'll teach you as well. Because being able to teach, especially children, is a very useful skill to take with you.
Mm.
And that's it. That's all I have.
One of the things that we noticed with our children as they were growing up, and it was really done on faith because we didn't know, we wanted them to have close relationships with each other, like closer than a friend, just different but really
Yes.
close.
Yeah.
And as they've gone into adulthood, like our youngest is just 24, our eldest is mid-30s. And my husband and I are just regularly delighted, really, when we just sit back and we just watch them relating with each other. They all
Yeah.
get on well with each other. Some have particular closer relationships with another
Hmm.
one, but they seek each other's company out. They
Yes.
want to be with each
Hmm.
other. And I can only say that homeschooling gifted us with that.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, and then another thing, my mom, because there were a lot of us, and we lived in my parents still live in a small house, and so there was a lot of infighting, as there would be with kids. But I remember my mom would always tell us, you wouldn't treat your friends like this, would you? Well, no. Then why are you treating your brother or your sister who you love like this? And she would tell us that all the time. And it was true because we're like, we wouldn't. um, but I agree. And honestly, the brother that had problems with the letter G, he's gonna be a senior in September in high school. And like he's one of my closest friends. We talk all the time. Even with that pretty big age gap between the two of us. Like we're always talking, always sending funny videos back and forth to each other. Um, and so I definitely agree. Like all of us being home, has definitely made all of us really close. And my siblings are some of the most important people in the world to me. Just because like we did grow up together. Like versus kids who I remember, like I think about it now and I don't understand how siblings don't have good relationships with each other. Like it just doesn't make sense to me because I've always had really good relationships with my siblings. So even if we don't agree on a lot of the time, like I still love them, you know?
Yeah. Mm. And I think that outcome in life is a good enough reason in itself to seriously consider homeschooling and to even continue with it. But thank you so much for the time and your
Of course.
and your insights. You've been really generous with them, Priscilla. I can see you, bringing them out of the filing cabinet of your mind and just enjoying the memory of them. But the homeschoolers who are kind of in the thick of it at the moment will be reassured, and they'll have a few laughs, and they'll be so grateful for your advice.
Yeah. And even if it's hard in the moment, because I'm sure my mom wanted to quit so many times doing math with me, like every day. And she's gonna laugh about that too, because we laughed about it the other day. But she stuck with it, and I'm so thankful that she did.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to meet your mother. I think I would.
Oh, she's wonderful.
Yeah. I love her already, and I've never met her. I think she's amazing. And your dad, because she didn't do this by herself. The support of him in the background meant that she could do that.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
All right, dear lady. Thank you so much again. I really.
Of course, this was fun.
Oh, it was good fun. It was good fun.